gentlemen, the Warbosses of Da ApORKalypse.
Greetings, boys and gits, and welcome to the Warbosses of Da ApORKalypse. I am your host, Dread of Dread Wargaming, and I am joined, as usual, by my co-hosts, Dim of the Hobby Git. I'd say hello, Dim.
Hello.
There he
Hello,
is.
Dim.
There he is. Hello, Dim. Scar here of Plastic Crack Gaming. Say hello, Scar.
What's the crack?
What's the crack? That's, of course, what he'll say. And last but not least, Mr. 6+ Stevo, the colourblind Bad Moon. Say hello, Stevo.
Hey guys, how are we?
There he is.
I think he's
Right,
waiting
so-
for a witty retort.
I was waiting for something. So, as some of you lovely folk might have seen from Steve-O's video there, because he couldn't wait but spill the beans, we have got a fantastic new orc miniature of each of us Warbosses, which you can get from Carl Reiki, who is also known as Gear Guts. And Gear Guts has a mech shop where you can go and you can buy your stuff from his store, but he also does downloadable 3D print files, which I am unsure. Do you guys know? Is this going to be an available model on the 3D print scheme, or is it?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
He's,
everything else
he's
is
making them fully available on through all methods, I think. And yeah, it's amazing. We are now official merchandise. You can buy your
We've been immortalised.
Yeah, it's great, and hopefully this will soon be followed by our own data sheets. We can have our own special rules and points. And everything,
Yeah.
and we will be dominating
Immortalised?
battlefields. Yeah, oh,
like that.
But my only fear with that is that the least popular of the miniatures might end up becoming a legend.
Sorry, Dim.
Right, everybody rush out.
Just
and
making me
wipe
think
Dim
of that
on
old Carry On joke. I heard you were a leg end.
Terrible. Right,
Plans.
so yeah, they are available and they're on the screen now, so you can feast your eyes even on these beautiful miniatures. Pick your favourite.
They're stunning. I
Or
think
buy all four.
even though it's not me, I've got a soft spot for Scar's one. The whole
I was about to say mine's
Hollow-
my favourite.
Oh, it's so what a cool little touch that was. That was genius, brilliant. That was.
They are
Yeah,
very
the little
pretty.
issuing out his orders to his holographic projection of one of his command. Oh, superb.
I did give a little bit of feedback. I was like, it'd be cool if he had like a power claw sort of gauntlet thing with a hologram giving orders. I was like, that'd be cool.
Badass. Yeah, I mean they all look great. All four
A little
of them
pin
look
vice in his belt for drilling gun barrels.
I'm straight.
I don't know if Carl actually knew, but mine is quite heavily based on my favourite miniature.
Grut.
Zodgrod Wartsnagger from Second
Yeah.
Ed.
Well,
The-
it's
the
funny,
big
yeah.
hair and the
When I
claw.
spoke to Velgarn to design the art, that is very much the brief I gave him. I said, think of what's I can pronounce his name now.
Zodgrod Wartsnagger.
That Wartsnagger. I said, think of him with the beard and everything. It was spot on, and he loves his grots, so it's perfect. You know?
And it is my favourite miniature, probably, of all the 40.
Hang on. The only stipulation you told me was you said, make sure he looks proper grumpy.
Well, yes, definitely. He had to have the grumpy looking. When he put me smiling from my nice toothy smile, I was like, you can't do that with Dim.
No. So,
For the character.
in our last episode, of course, we talked about orc clans. So this time around, what are we talking about, boys? We're talking about our hobby store memories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because we've all been in them extraordinary places known as gaming stores, and we've probably all got a few unusual memories that we can share. So we thought we'd share them with you, have a nice little chit-chat, and have a little bit of a free-flowing chit-chat. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. All the good stuff, you know.
Bit of banter.
Bit of banter, yeah, that's the stuff. So who's going to kick off with telling a story about the old days, eh?
Dim,
No volunteers.
I think you should take it away.
I've
Dim.
just been
You should take it away.
conscripted. I've just been conscripted. Took the king's shilling.
Go on.
Tell the viewers a little bit about your background a bit, mate, because you've spent like we were chatting before we started recording, and Scar was saying that you've spent a great deal of time within these
More than most.
dens of depravity.
Yeah, I spent quite a lot of time in my local GW. For a long time, it was really, really good because we had, you get that you get just one staffer or like one manager. He just comes in and it just everything clicks.
Yeah.
And you get a functioning community, and you get like a really good. You've got a manager who's open and helpful, and goes above and beyond, but also is quite happy for the weird and wonderful to go into his store and game and build like a functioning community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great time. We did all sorts of stuff. There was a lot of converting going on, a lot of various hobby stuff, and that was actively encouraged. And
I think it was more so in all of the stores at a certain time.
Yeah,
more so.
It certainly seems to be a thing that GW seems to be moving away from, which I think is probably a mistake. But I'll get to that in my bad example.
Not included in the training any longer, is it? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But it's like, for me, like what makes any kind of hobby store, whether it's a local friendly gaming store that's independent, or a Games Workshop, or kind of any hobby group that you come and meet, like, you need a functioning community. You need a group of people who know each other quite well. And it can be a bit forbidding, but like, I just never got that. And a lot of people go, oh, it's a bit cliquey. It's just like, well, you were dealing with wargamers. Wargamers have never had a reputation for being sociable people. It's always going to be a bit awkward to begin with.
It's a hard thing to read, clickiness, isn't it? Because how many of us have probably been mistakenly accused, whether it be in a workplace or in a social environment, of potentially being clicky.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, people, they're not meaning to be. Maybe they just got conversations, things going on with people they know really well. They're not meaning to exclude anyone, but someone else's their anxiety and their shyness and things they can sort of maybe think that it's other people kind of distancing themselves. But
as it goes, Steve, what you're saying there is part of the bad. One of the few things that I can say is actually not from my own experience, but from the experience of other people that I've had with me when I've gone to Games Workshop. So when I've had a girlfriend, or when I'm with friends, and I'm like, oh, I just want to pop in here and I just want to grab this or get this or whatever. And they're like, oh, do you want me to wait outside? No, come in. And I drag them in, and they immediately leave like within 5 minutes, because if they're a girl, they're being leered at and stared at, and and if they're a guy and they're not, they don't fit the stereotype, shall we say? I'd imagine, Steve-O, you might even have this problem yourself. Like,
it's literally one of the things.
Like, what are you doing in here? What are you doing in here? You don't belong in here. But as Dim was saying there, it's the one thing that really makes a difference is that one staffer that really can pull that together. So one of my early
welcome and everything.
Yeah. One of the store memories that I had from when I was very young was my local store when I was young was Maidstone in Kent. And I remember going in there, and all the guys were bigger, long-haired guys, all into metal and stuff. And it was one of them places where you felt a little bit like it's a bit cliquey, and these people are all looking at me like I don't belong. But there was this one guy who was the deputy manager, and he used to run the place, I think, on like a Saturday and a Sunday, or Sunday, Monday, something like that. And he would listen to, like, he'd have his choice of music playing, and he'd have like Prodigy and Underworld and stuff like that. And he had the lip piercing like yourself, and probably an eyebrow piercing. He had spiky gelled hair, and one of them bead chains around his neck. He looked a bit bohemian. And he was really nice. He was one of them people that looks really edgy, but old people love, because he's so polite and nice. And he was much better at making people feel included and having a much more inclusive shop. So actually, on the days that he was in, he used to do much better sales than any of the other guys. And it's because of the fact that he was so much more friendly, even though he's on his own. And
built a rapport with people, hadn't he? And so people would probably go to him, And
I think without him, I wouldn't have got so into it myself. It was this guy sort of welcoming me in and saying, here, look, do you want to do some painting? I've got time to show you some stuff. And, he was taking like I mean, as a mature person now, you know, you meet a bunch of kids, you're like, oh, get out of my way, oh, go away. But like, if it's your job, you know, this guy actually took it seriously and actually bothered with the kids, made an effort, and you know, it's good. It made a big difference to me. You know, I think that's one of the best things you can get. Like Tim was saying, in a hobby store experience, is that good staffer that actually bothers to include people.
Did Dean get a chance to finish his story?
Nah, doubt it. I rolled
I mean,
all over.
I was talking generally, like.
I thought you said free flowing.
Well,
jeez, Dim. To be fair, it was probably me that cut him off. You know how I do that.
These are all shower up bollocks.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah.
Well, the highlight for me was that I made a couple of games which got played in store.
Oh yeah.
Like a couple of mini games, but it was like for store parties, and they were all based on like a core game, and like the staffer in particular was Paul. He was really, really good. He's moved on to bigger and better things, fortunately for him. But he just kind of sussed everyone. He figured out what they wanted out of the hobby, and he tried his best to accommodate it. And I just he realised that I had quite a sort of like fancied myself a writer. Fancied myself a bit of a rules writer, and I just made a bunch of games, and he tweaked basically all of them. It was never really fully my work, but it was a lot of fun, and it was a good laugh.
Did he feel that he had to let you do this because he was
No.
sick of you standing in the middle of the store going, I can write better than all these muppets?
Well, no, because he wanted
he
to...
sweeps his hand across the shelf.
Well, there's
all
quite a lot
amateurs
of...
compared to moi.
there's well, maybe, but there's quite a lot of... There's
What do
probably
you
an
mean,
element
maybe?
of that. Probably an element of
I've
that.
been in a GW with you, don't you forget.
That, like, I'm the sort of person who comes in and basically, you know, when people ring you when you ring a company ring a company on the phone, and they go, calls may be recorded for training purposes. I'm the reason that phrase exists. If you ask me, if a GW staffer comes up to me and asks me a question, I am going to answer it, and the staffer's probably going to regret asking. In all honesty,
you're in all the tea rooms, you know, all the GW stores. There's little posters up, but like, you got all the pictures of the local shoplifters and that. There's just the pictures of people avoid this one at all costs.
Yeah, well, no. For me, what it really boils down to, what makes a good staffer is how much effort they're willing to go to accommodate you and to meet you kind of halfway. Kind of reminds me, it's a weird analogy, but there's I'm not sure which talk show host it was who did it. It might be Dick Cavett. It's one of the Americans. The Americans like their late night talk shows. And there was one time that they got Tom Waits on. Now, if I don't know how many of the viewers or any of the other Warbosses are familiar with Tom Waits. Tom Waits is not a talkative man.
No.
But he got a good interview out of him because he made the actual effort. He went to an awful lot of effort to get him talking. In the same way Dick Cavett managed to do similar with George Harrison as well. Like,
oh yes, I watched that one. Yeah,
but yeah, and that's it starts off, you think, oh god, this interview's a train wreck, and by the end of it, you're just like, that is a really good interview. But it's all about how much work they're willing to put in, and this particular staffer he put in more than 100%, and there are an awful lot of really good staffers in GWs. GW staffers often get a bad reputation. And I think often it's unwarranted, but sometimes it's deserved. But I think the thing is like, the thing I would advise to anybody who wants to be a GW staffer is just try and get to know your people. And more importantly, like, the thing about hobbyists is never judge a book by its cover, because an awful lot of us do not look like particularly pleasant people, but if you get to know
Speak for yourself, mate. Jesus.
Basically decent underneath. No, I have to say this, right? Because you guys come in and they might think something of you, whereas I go into a GW, I look exactly like the person.
One of us, come in here.
I look exactly like it. I fit the profile of neckbeard to
Yeah. They got arm round you, bringing you in. Come on, let's fix you a sandwich and get you some dice. Come on.
I'm fat. I have
Put
long
up a
hair.
stall. You're
I
going to
listen
be
to
here for a
rock
while.
music. I've got a beard. It's not a good one, but it's
He's
a
out
beard.
there with his bloody sandwich board on there. Old law was better. Get him off. Get him in.
Hey, you can't argue with facts. Proof is an absolute defence. I'm done talking. Someone else talk. I'm in a huff now.
Oh,
We'll
Yeah,
set 'em.
just talking
I think
about.
that-
I don't have much experience of playing in GW stores.
no, not me.
There's not many local to me. I've got one in Portsmouth and one in Brighton. They're both about 20 miles away.
Oh, you poor thing. That sounds so far.
Yeah, and Dread, over here we get there by car, not by horse.
Whoa. I can only dream of being as badly off as you. Oh.
I'll sling some teeth your way, maybe.
No, you won't.
No, but
Luxury. Luxury.
No, but I did have an experience of playing in a GW store once, and it was a deeply unpleasant one.
Oh, yeah?
It was at the launch of Apocalypse, and
First
they were
time
running I can't remember. This was around 5th edition.
If it was the initial Apocalypse, it would have been 4th. If it was Apocalypse Reloaded, it would have been 5th.
It probably was reloaded. So they were doing a big event, and I used to go. My sister lived in Brighton, used to be in the store all the time, and one of the very friendly GW staffers was very enthusiastically telling me about the tournament that they've got going on, and they're doing a big, sort of Apocalypse games for fun, and everyone's free to come along and join in. And I was like, sounds pretty cool, actually. And he was doing it next week, and I was like, okay, cool. And so I said to my mate, I'd go down there, and he'd never been either. And I don't know what we were expecting, but what we walked into was like a children's birthday party at McDonald's. It was mental.
Amazing.
And it was, it was frantic. It was just GW staffers shouting over all these people. You there,
So
you there.
Steve-O, I can guess you never went to a games day with your local store.
No, never been to a games day. But it's not a big store in Brighton either. The GW store, it's a small little store, and they crammed us there. So my mate's over the other side. He bought his Elder or his Tau or something. I bought a Necron Monolith, and we were only allowed to use one unit. You could just pick one unit, and you join in this massive game. So it's about 50 people each side of the table. I'm just surrounded by these like 14-year-olds around me. Just, you can barely breathe. This is the summer as well, and GW stores aren't always the most fragrant of places in summertime.
This is one of the things that I think everybody will agree, especially if they went to him in a certain time.
Guys, you're not doing our lot any favour. Just deodorant, yeah? Come on, seriously, help us out. You're not doing the community any favours if you don't bathe.
Before we go any further, I shower every morning. Right, continue, Steve-O.
I love that he felt he needed to clarify that. I know what you're all thinking.
When I'm saying it's difficult to get other people to enter a GW store, that's half the reason, because they're literally like, no, from the air is too thick from the door. I ain't going in.
My sister always used to say, because my sister used to come in sometimes, and she would say, look, these, I don't get it. She goes, these guys can afford to spend like 20, 30 quid on like a model, but they won't buy some deodorant for a couple of
Can
quid.
of links for 150, yeah.
So if you can afford Warhammer, you can afford deodorant. Yeah. But yeah, it was absolutely cram-packed in there, heaving, and no one knew what the rules were, what was going on. GW staffers were just yelling at everyone, like, order, like, you there, right, get everything. And then they split the table up into three sections and said, right, each side on each section has a general. And I ended up being the oldest one there. I ended up being the general of my bit. And oh my God, it was just carnage and chaos. You couldn't tell if anyone was cheating. You couldn't tell if people were just like, just saying whatever. There were dice going all over the place. And I'd not long finished painting this monolith. It was like the pride of my collection. I put in loads of work on it, so much edge highlighting. And it got a nice little ooh when I put it out on the table. amongst all these other things that looked like they'd been done in Crayola. But yeah, I was just panicked because I had my bag of stuff. I was like worrying about someone nicking it. I was worrying about someone breaking my monolith. I was getting really stressed with these kids. Like, yeah, all right, just fucking easy with the dice, yeah? Just fucking worked hard on that. And it was just horrendous. It was horrendous. And looking across the table at my mate,
thought it was a dice tower, did they?
he was like, "Why have you done this to me? why have I done something to offend you or something?" But yeah, that's the one and only time I played in a GW store. And I know not all experiences are like that, and it was a special.
You know that the staff, I think, used to have an even harder time when they were organising the games days. Because what they would do is each store would have a bunch of tickets that they could sell for games day. So
a bus full of 14-year-old dreads turns up.
Yeah, basically in the end, they ended up with a coach load of kids that have all got a meet at the store at about 5 a.m, all being dropped off by their mums and whatnot. And once they've, like, the parents are left, you've got like 50, 60 kids that 3 staff members have got to deal with. And they
Dread
can't,
leading them up there like the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
Sway, come on.
And I was always that tryhard, I was always that one that's like, oh, well, I've made a store banner for us this year, to replace the store banner that you've used forever and ever. And, I'm just so handy. I built us one. It's orc-shaped. If you want to see it, actually, I'll share a picture of it, and you guys can, one of us can edit it in. A picture of my orky banner that I made for the Blue Water store. And the reason they didn't use it is because I spelt Blue Water like an orc would. So I put BLOO, and then I put a backwards E in water. And they're like, yeah, no, it's a really good banner. It's the only one made out of wood and a proper pole and that. Everyone else was made of fabric. But they're like, well, we still take our one, just so people definitely know where we're coming from. All right, fine. That's fucking effort. I fucking spent a weekend on that.
Were you stepping on people's toes?
I don't know. It might have been. I'm always unaware when I do it.
Yeah. Don't we fucking know?
So yeah, I ended up, being too enthusiastic and getting myself in trouble as usual.
So out of character.
I know.
No, go on, carry on with the story.
No, I mean, that's what I was going to say. Is there was frantic times whenever you had a games day party every year. Like that would be the one time that I would definitely go and participate with the local gaming store more so. I was regular in the shop to buy stuff, and they got used to not like. There's one thing they had to learn is don't do the salesman routine on me. I'm literally going to walk out the door and say fuck off. Sorry, but I'm not going to be pleasant about it if you try and force your sales on me. I'm just going to walk away and just like be not happy. Which is the experience I had in the Dublin store not long ago. There's a recent one. I went over to Dublin, which is where Sky lives. It's our only games workshop in all of Ireland, apart from actually
one in Cork.
One in
Belfast, but technically that's a different country.
Yeah, technically, yeah. So we've got 2 of them. We've got 2 of them.
It's
in
a
the
top of
Republic.
mountain. They have to fight their way through wolves and forest and lakes to get there.
It's an imperial citadel up there. Trust.
Like, come on, Scar. It's 5 days hike.
So I went into the Dublin store there, right? And I told you guys this story already. Actually, it was not long ago. It was like the other year when I was already started the channel. And I went in there and I thought, I'll give them a chance. It's been years since I've been affronted by these sorts of people. I'll give them another go. So I went in and,
you mean these people?
Yeah, staffers. GW staffers. So anyway, they says, they said, do you collect? I said, I do, yeah. What do you collect? I said, I don't know, sort of under my breath. No, they come over and it's like, so what army do you collect? Like, orcs. Oh, are you looking for anything in particular? No, I'm just browsing. I'm just seeing what I fancy and blah, blah. Have you seen the new orc vehicles? Yeah, I've seen them, yeah. They're wonderful, aren't they? I was like, well, the jury's out. There's a few of us that aren't so keen on them. Why? What's wrong with you? Oh, and I said, well, some people think that they're stupid then, aren't they? They're brilliant. They literally offended the whole of our community, everybody we know, just basically by saying, oh, well, what would they know? I was like, well, probably more about sales than you. So I put down the 3 boxes that were under my arm and walked straight back out the store. So, see you later.
Yeah, I've never had an experience like that. He sounded like quite confrontational, or
You
He
get
was,
that.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I
It's a
have,
mixed
but,
bag, though. That's the
yeah,
thing I've found. It's a mixed bag. Like them, there was a time where like I would have played in my local games workshop quite a lot when I was a teenager. Like the staffers knew me by name, and it was a case of I wouldn't walk out of the store after a day gaming without a box of something. So they all knew me. Like they literally all knew me by
is this
name.
the days you was talking about last time, man, when you literally couldn't be prized away from the shop?
Pretty much.
his mum outside tapping on the glass.
Yeah.
Oh, that was when I was super young. Yeah. That was when I used to get her to go to Blanchardstown shopping centre. Now this would have been a few years later. I would have been about 17 and going into the store you were actually on about, in the city centre, and I used to go in there quite a lot. But that's what I mean. Like it's a bit of a mixed bag. Like I've had good experiences in that store, and I've had the worst experience I've ever had in a fucking Games Workshop store in that store, and it's all down to staff.
Yeah.
Individual staff. That it's
Mhm.
such a mixed bag. Like I'm sure there's some people who absolutely love their local staffer and have an absolutely mint time, and then there's other games workshops you walk in and literally it'd be like a personal affront to the staffer, that you've walked into their store, or you know what I mean, just
Yeah.
the vibes you get off them, or their attitude. It's really strange. I've never, like, if we think about it just in retail, we've never come across a more inconsistent customer service than
Yes,
you will in Games
true.
Workshop.
True
Like
that,
it's weird. Some staffers are brilliant. Some of them are absolute bellends.
I've only come across one massive bell end working for a GW before, and I just but generally I've never had any overly negative experience other than that one. But I get the hard sell a lot, and
Yeah.
I think Dim was saying in the beginning that it sort of changed somewhat. Whether that was because they're young and they knew I didn't have any fucking money, they didn't bother. And now I walk in, they're like, "Oh, he's got some dollar," like. But they, it's just leap on you as soon as you walk in the door. Not actually at a Games Workshop, but I've been in a store once and I was looking for the Orc Codex. This was in a non-GW store, but he said, no, they all went or something. They all sold. We do have this though, and he holds up the Drakari Codex. And I'm like, well, that's nice. Don't understand why that's relevant to me. But yeah, but no,
You're looking to spend money. Here you go, spend some money.
So if it was Sky, probably would have. Yeah, fucking why not?
back then, maybe, like, it depended. I had several different armies on the go. I was mainly playing fantasy, but yeah.
In any store, I don't like the hard sell. I don't like door-to-door salesmen. I don't like getting telephone for sales, and I don't like when I walk into a store and they're trying to push something on me.
I'm more likely to buy more. If I'm left to my own devices, I'll pick more up and I'll pay them for it. If you come and try and tell me what to buy, I'm going to put most of it back.
There's more subtle ways of like you said before, like building a rapport with people and stuff, and just general chat. You're probably more likely to buy something there. Even if you maybe weren't intended, you think, he's a decent guy, he's a real nice bloke, and kind of would like to buy something to contribute to this store because it's a decent store with decent staffers. But
they certainly in our lifetimes changed their tact entirely. When I was a kid, there was a growing number of Games Workshop stores. So I can remember when you open to the back of a White Dwarf and there'd be 3 pages or 4 pages of all the stores, and they'd be dotted all over the map. And I remember I used to live in Kent, so we had one in Maidstone, one in Tunbridge Wells, one at Bluewater when that opened, Canterbury. We had quite a few Games Workshop stores, all close enough to me. And then we had an independent couple in Rochester and Chatham. And when I recently came back, having been sat out in Ireland for years and years and not being able to get to a store, I was like, well, when I go home, I can't wait to get to a Games Workshop store actually and just go and see somewhere where they've got everything and I don't have to ask them, oh, have you got this? Oh, no, we can order it. Yeah, so can I. So, I thought I can actually go and actually have a proper browse. But the Maidstone store was the only one still available. The Tunbridge Wells one had closed down.
Fucking Londoner.
And the Bluewater one had closed down, all closed up. So, the list of shops is much smaller than it used to be now. So there's a lot more focus on online sales and just letting the independents do it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean that's true of a lot of businesses now, isn't it? And probably loads of stores that we fondly remember and stuff have gone of all kinds. But GW probably have only survived because of the product they are selling and the fact that it is as kind of a social gathering area, and so it's probably the only thing that's kept them going.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't need
in
a
this
store
age
to
of like everything
demonstrate.
being online.
Although it
Yeah.
does bewilder me because there's some weird stuff that they do with stores.
Mm.
Like, when like a company gets like stock and some of it is outdated, and what a store will do is like sell it cheaply to get rid of it.
Oh, sorry,
like
I can
do
tell
a
where this is
sale.
going. This is going to be funny.
A sale, 4-letter word, a sale.
If one of the you've just used that word. That
the GW
that word
staff
is,
get
I think,
told
a sackable
either one of
offence to
two,
even mention the word
yeah,
sale.
either
This is
one
why,
of two.
why you was never
Yeah.
offered a job in a GW store is right clear right now.
But like one or two things occur: either they're told to destroy the stock or send it back.
Destroy it?
destroyed.
Yeah.
It's
You're joking.
something.
I'm just
that,
imagining a Mr. Burns
high-end
somewhere.
retailers do.
Destroy the stock.
Yeah, pretty much.
This would be how the staffers have got, an army that they don't want anymore to sell.
I mean, it's kind of it's not the
Could
worst.
you destroy that? Oh yeah.
Some people think that's the worst retail thing. The worst retail thing I ever heard was, do you remember when Game Station sort of was around?
Mm-hmm.
British people.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if there was any in Ireland, Scar, but
You had like GameStops and Game or something. So
Yeah,
something
just like
similar.
GameStop. Just like GameStop. Yeah.
Yeah. Game Station was like one in the UK, and it was doing really, really well until the worst gaming store company like bought them out. But I always thought that Game was kind of worse, but I found out later because Game Station, like, they did gangbusters, like buying loads of things pre-owned. Do you know what they did with an overwhelming amount of the pre-owned stuff, especially like they said they would buy like for old consoles. All of the old console stuff that they got that wasn't current gen, they burnt it.
It's just criminal, isn't it? It's absolutely
they
fucking
destroy the stuff.
criminal. Yeah.
They fucking
You see
burnt it
people
all.
dumpster diving where they're at the back of these GameStops and stuff. Where
Yeah.
they'll key the games so that
Yeah.
Oh,
I used to go
so-
and buy some like retro stuff there, because it used to be one of the draws to a game station. They had all the retro stuff and that. But yeah, I met absolutely disgusting business.
As you can imagine, it's harder now without the dreadlocks, but you might be able to imagine I've done a bit of dumpster diving in my time. And they actually do that with the food as well. They actually ruin the food. They pour stuff over the food, or they split the packaging and stuff like that on food they're throwing away when it's perfectly good food. Someone could or will or does want or need
GW
it.
is certainly not alone in it. I've worked for companies as well. I've worked for companies selling like tools and stuff. And if any like sort of ex-display stuff and that, it was cut the plugs off and that and cut them. So and then before you throw them, you had to break them before you throw them in the skip.
That's terrible, isn't it?
And it's horrendous. Such wasteful. But
Yeah.
we probably got slightly off track.
Yeah, a little bit.
Talk about a good experience I've had.
Go for
So
it.
recently, there's the box is over there, but the Kill Team box set, I bought it when it first came out. There was like the Skitari and the Gene Stealer Cultists, which I both still haven't painted, but they're on the back burner. But yeah, it's the first time I've ever gotten a box set of something, and the miniatures didn't cast properly or something like that on the Skitari, like their cloaks. There was something weird with them. Anyway, rang up to Dublin GW, talked to the staff there. I don't know if he's the manager, or I wish I remember his name so I could sing his praises. I don't remember. I apologize, but he was really cool. So he's like, yeah, no bother, come up. So I rocked up. I brought the sprues with me, and I showed him. I was like, oh yeah, I was on the phone to you. Blah blah blah. Here we go. And he's like, yeah, I think he's worked for Games Workshop for a long time. He's like, I've never seen a miscast. And I was saying it to him. I was like, yeah, I've been in the hobby for like 22 odd years at this point. I've never seen something like miscast ever. And he was like, yeah, no bother. So he literally just took box off of the shelf of the Skitari deals and he goes, there you go. And I'm like, all right, well, there's those sprues. He's like, no, you can keep them as well. He's like, there you go, sorted. And so it's like good experience wise, their customer service for the miniatures and stuff. It's really good. So,
Yeah, they've always been highly spoken of on that front, haven't they? Of having that
Yeah,
no
mail
quibble
order
refunds,
replacements.
exchanges.
They have to
mail
be,
order
though.
with a bomb. They were so
Mm.
good. You ordered a load of stuff for mail order, and like they got 3 things wrong. They'd send you the whole order again. You're like, okay, like cool, yeah. Next time, I'm definitely making sure there's something missing.
Yeah, abusing it. I wonder why mail order is not around anymore.
Anyway, changing the
Fucking
subject.
freebooters.
So you got a picture of you next to Dim with a cross through it as well.
Yeah. Board up the shop if you see these 2 coming.
Don't talk to this one. Don't sell to this one. He asked for a refund. Tell him to jog on.
I only ever had one negative experience of taking something back. Now, is it? There's probably a few people who can probably anticipate the word that I'm about to say.
Was it a book?
You didn't try and return a white dwarf, did you?
No. It's a
Read it. It was terrible.
It's a miniature return.
Oh.
Well,
Podcast.
I've yeah, it's fine cast. Yeah. Before I get distracted, I've never actually returned some books. I suppose I probably could have done it quite often because defaulty product is quite a good.
Well, didn't they
description
offer you
of
to return
GW.
a book once? And I think you may have told them to go fuck themselves or something.
Yeah, the Orc Warboss edition, I damaged it myself, and I felt like it would be really unfair for me to send them something that basically I didn't want to send back something that I'd almost ruined as badly as they had, because I've got better standards. So I kept it.
At least you kept your morals.
Yeah, the sixth edition.
Do you know what they've got over you? Do you know what they've got over you?
Money.
About 50 quid. Yeah.
Well, it was
100
100
quid.
It was 100 quid.
100 quid
blimey.
set.
100 quid for the
Jeez.
limited edition for the Warboss edition. It was
Mhm.
fucking criminally bad as well. It was some of the worst writing I've encountered and some blatant errors. I mean, they obviously rushed that book out. Like, how do you put a piece of war gear in a codex that you're willing to charge someone 100 quid for and not know that a jet bike can't drop a bomb because it's not a flyer or a flying monstrous creature? How dumb do you have to be to make that kind of mistake and then think it's perfectly reasonable to put it out and charge 100 quid for it? Like,
I got the fishing rod out here. Hold on. Let's get him out of that rabbit hole. Wonderful.
but anyway, yeah. So I bought an early Finecast thing, and I bought the first thing that got the Finecast treatment was one of them was a Tomb King Leech Priest, and I can't remember why I bought him. I bought him for some reason, some plan or something that I was going to do with him. I think I was going to convert him into like a vampire or a necromancer or something. I didn't have Tomb Kings at the time, but I bought it anyway, just more or less out of curiosity, and it was so bad. It's the only time I've ever returned anything, because normally I would work with it. And the staff in question, like, spent a solid 30 minutes to an hour trying to persuade me that what I needed was liquid green stuff.
Yeah. Well, they've been told to sell that profusely. Yeah.
And like, oh, it's not that bad, you know. And it's just like, and I just kept, and in the end, I just pointed to the blister, and I just said, "You see what that word is?" He's like, "Yeah." I says, "Read it out for me." Is it Finecast? I says, "Yeah." Money back. And I said, and he said, "You know, it's not my fault." And I says, "I know it's not your fault. It's your company's fault. If you're gonna redo your matches in an inferior product, don't call it Finecast
And charge more for it.
Yeah."
Yeah.
And I said, "You know, it's," and he says, "There's teething problems." I says, "There wasn't teething problems in your price rise, was there?"
No.
Like,
Well,
that was
the issue
early
with
on.
that-
That was early on with Finecast as well, because I mean, we were speaking how it's got
just
a
as
bit
well that
better
GW
over the
doesn't
years,
like,
but
just as well that GW like doesn't rush out like a new thing really recently around about the time of a recession and then put prices up at the same time. Just as well that doesn't happen anymore.
to quote
Yeah.
Star Wars, stay on target.
Stay on target, boys.
I think though the change from Finecast to Finecast from metal
Stay on
has
target.
actually
Stay on target.
has reduced other people's opinions of this store though. So if they go in, they're like, "Oh, they don't do the metal models anymore." No. Oh,
I
well,
think it
it's a bit cheap in it. Like, why are they so expensive? They're only plastic. I get that a lot from friends. They're like, "Oh, I could
was
understand when they
something
were
about-
metal."
Yeah, there was something about metal miniatures that they felt like they were worth it. You know what I
They
mean?
were
Whereas,
worried
you know,
about the
you picked
rise
it
of
up,
the-
they were.
They were worried about the rises of the material costs. That was why they shifted over to
You know what I
fine
mean?
cast.
You
And
pick
then
up a
they
metal
spun
miniature,
it.
it's like there's a bit of weight to that.
Well, it backfired on them heavily because how many fucking refunds and exchanges have they had to fucking do for them?
Well,
I've heard stories of people, you know, getting it replaced. No, still shit. Getting it replaced again. No, still shit. Getting it replaced again. Like finally, okay, this one will do. You know. But
How about memories from in store from any competitions that they held? Did you ever get involved in a competition in store?
well, that hideous moment I talked about earlier, when I was like literally in this tin of sardines playing Warhammer, trying to protect my monolith. There was supposed to be a competition. That by entering that, you were supposed to be entered in a competition. This is what the bloke the week before had very excitedly told me. Oh, it's going to be great. You're going to take part in this massive battle. We enter you in a competition and someone's going to win, I don't know, a starter set or some big box of something.
Battle
in the
Force
store.
or something, yeah.
Or they could spend 50 quid in store or something like that. And they're going to pick a name out. And I was like, oh, wicked. Yeah, cool. Sign me up on that. And we got there. He said, oh, have you got your tickets? I said, what tickets? He said, I said, well, I mean, no one said anything about tickets. He said, come along. He said, oh, well, okay, not in the competition. And I thought, fuck's sake. So that's as close as I got to one.
I won a stomper for a competition. That's the only thing I ever did. Was it's back in my Blue Water days when I was going there. So it was in my second stint in the hobby in my 20s. And it was when the Orc truck had only recently come out. And the competition was, you had 1 week, you buy an Orc truck, it had a sign up by the till as well, buy an Orc truck, convert it and paint it, and enter it into the competition. And if you win, you're in the chance to win a stomper. And I was fortunate. I went along to the day where you bring all your stuff in, and I'd made up an Orc truck, and I had quite heavily converted it, and I'd painted up sort of speed freaky. And I won because there was only about 10 entries, and most of them were fairly naff. You know, there's people just like, you know, put it together and slap some paint on it, whereas I'd actually, you know, gone full hog on it. And yeah, so I won a stomper, but I'd never liked the stomper model, so I made a tower out of it. There you go.
I did quite a few. I've got one of the things I won. It's the. Don't know if I'm showing that too well, but
Paintbrush.
yeah, you probably
But
can't
this
tell
must
too
have
well.
been very recent because that still looks healthy.
Yeah, it's
Last week, was it?
Well, no, it's the GW Fine Detail Artificer brush. It was in the 90 quid Artificer set.
Oh.
And the reason I have it is not because I bought the Artificer set, it's because I won it in a GW competition. I won it in a painting competition. I can't believe I actually won a painting competition.
What did you paint?
I painted like a White King, the White King with the sword and the shield, the plastic one. And I did some wet blending on the cloak, and by accident rather than talent, it looked good.
It's because he entered it in the under 14 section. He pretended he was bringing it in for his son.
Also, my store used to run quite a lot of competitions. We also did a rune thing, which I know my staffer didn't like invent it. He got it from some other staffer that had come up with it. But it's like you bought like the biggest base that they did, the circular base that I think like Archeon, the big Archeon's on. And you did like you could do anything with it. You could put anything on that. You could put a diorama, you could put a single miniature, whatever you wanted, and you entered it. And there were 3 categories. There was best painted. There was a one for the kids, and then there was best conversion. And my staffer did 3 of these, and I won 2 of them for best conversion, and the other one I didn't enter.
See, it's definitely clicky in Games Workshop, isn't it? See?
I don't know where I've put him, but my massive dragon that is sometimes in the back of my shots is one of the things that won it, which is not particularly surprising. I will not talk about how much money I spent making that miniature. It was costly.
Yeah, I did that a lot with the mail order, buying parts and spending 5 times the amount for one Chaos Lord that but he was mine, you know, he was personal.
I spent about 80 quid making a looted wagon once. That was
you can sometimes they save you money, sometimes they cost you like 4 times the amount, but at least you end up with something personalized. But no, in terms of like gaming at GW, like I said, very limited experience there, but
Same way. Yeah.
Something we have a lot of in this country, and I know it's not the same everywhere, it's sort of different around the world, is we have a lot of gaming clubs, you know, in various town halls and churches and leisure centres and
Community centres.
upstairs in a pub or whatever, you know. Yeah, there's all sorts of places. And so that's been my experience of like gaming in that environment, certainly not in stores.
Upstairs in a pub's always a good one, isn't it?
Yeah. And I've
because if you're losing, it don't really matter. You can just have a few drinks and it ain't so bad.
Yeah, I went to a you earlier actually, Dread, saying
if
about
if anything, I play better when I've had a drink anyway.
This is what I say when I play pool at a pub, but I think it's just that I think I'm playing better. But yeah, he's so
twice as many balls though. Jesus.
I got one in. What colour was it? I don't care. I got one in.
You saying earlier about like walking in and sort of people judging you or whatever, and your appearance of not maybe fitting in and walking into that potentially cliquey atmosphere. I remember at the gaming club I used to go to, it was a little gaming club called Warburton Wargamers. And Warburton's like a little village area, kind of.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it sounds exactly like a little village.
Yeah, there's nothing there. There's a little farm shop on the way and stuff. Good place to pick up some snacks on the way, actually.
Don't they make bread?
Is it Warburton on the something? Is it Warburton on the wall or something? Is it?
It's Warburton. Warburton. It's the very small. It's not the Warburton you're thinking of, the where they make the bread. No, it's a little tiny little village.
No, I was is it like on or upon or something like that? You know how you get like a triple barrel.
Upon Thames, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the club was Warburton Wargamers, and it was in like a scout hut. And I remember me and my mate going there for the first night, and it was during the autumn winter time, so it was dark already.
It's an old village, of course. It's got a scout hall.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
If you're the kind of older middle-aged guy that's into entertaining young children, it's a perfect place to be, isn't it?
Oh, this conversation's taking a dark turn. Christ.
Scouts and wargamers. Ooh.
Stay on target.
Stay on target.
So yeah, we're looking for this scout bloody hole in this tiny little village that we are from the arse end of nowhere, and it's dark. We don't know where the hell we are. Probably before sat nav. I know we didn't have a sat nav. We're looking on the A to Z trying to find this place, and we pulled up at a place and we can see like a building that looks like some kind of hall of some kind. There's lights on there, and he said, "Well, it must be there. That's got to be it, surely." And so we pull up, we get out, we've got our cases and everything, and we go wandering in. And just before we open the door, we notice that there's a load of old people in there ballroom dancing. We're like, no, wrong place. Don't hang around. And we go back, we're sitting in the car, and we're close to giving up. Like, I don't know where on earth this place is. And my mate, he's the one that had discovered it. I said, have you not got the guy's number? You can ring him or something. And just as we're sitting there, we see the people walk past. Dribs and drabs, and sorry Dim, one of them looked just like you, but in like the 14-year-old version of you. Long trench coat, looking like Neo from the Matrix, got the briefcase and everything going along, and then he's followed by another one, looking like a little Harry Potter following behind with the glasses on and that and the boxes. And I'm like, mate, we need to follow them. They are our people. That's where we're going. And sure enough, they led us across a football field, and there it was, a little place, and it was a tiny little hall. It just had like a little toilet in the back and a little kitchenette area where you could make a brew, and cupboards basically. And you opened the cupboards and it was filled with all the terrain and the gaming tables. And it was like the dinner hall at school, like setting up all the tables and everything. But I remember walking in there for the first time, and like you say, I think they thought I was there to rob the place.
Yeah.
Because I just walked into a sea of grunge, and I walked in there in my like white Nike hoodie and big fat trainers, baggy jeans and piercings. Right?
Oh, the head's torn, did he?
Yeah, and the organizer, he was very much into his historicals and stuff, and he sort of he looked up and raised eyebrows and said, "You all right there, mate? Yeah, we called earlier and that." He was like, "Oh, hello," and then welcomed us in and that. And it was a very brief sort of hushed silence, but then like once you got chatting to people and that, it was great, and they were a fantastic.
Once all the kids that were scared of you left.
Yeah. But no, it was Friday nights. So Friday nights was 16s and up, and then they did one on a Saturday during the daytime as well, which was they let all the kids come along. And that. Then I only went to a couple of them. They're a bit busier, but it was just such a chilled atmosphere. And there was only about, on a busy night, there'd be maybe 25, 30 people there. On a quiet night, there'd only be about 6 or 7 of you. But it was just sort of turn up and get chatting to someone or whatever, and do you fancy having a game, doing something, or you'd arrange a game with someone for the next week. And it was just a cool place there was people of all age groups, people much older than me, and then youngsters as well. And but everyone was just really genuine and nice, and we had some real talent there as well. There was a guy he was my first experience of seeing what conversions and kit bashing and stuff, and what you could achieve with green stuff and millipup, and he just created whole armies. And it was just every week he would turn up with some ridiculous creation. You were just like, oh my god, it's amazing. And there was a really nice Frenchman there, who he was about 40, 50 at the time, but he had a big Tyranid army. And it was just when I was starting to get Tyranids and that, so we got chatting to him a lot about Tyranids and that. But yeah, just really friendly atmosphere, and good games were had, and we had little tournaments and stuff, and they used to run little competitions and that as well. And it was just, when I got back into the hobby a few years back, one of the first things I did was look it up online to call the organizer and say, look, you might not remember me because it's about 10 years ago now, but he's still running. And I couldn't get through, and all the websites seemed to be old, and I finally got hold of him through like Facebook or something. And yeah, he said, no, we closed about 4 years ago. He said 7th edition killed us. He said 7th came out and everyone stopped coming. He said there was only a couple of people playing other games, because they did used to play like the Star Wars game and some other bits there. But he said, it just killed it dead. He said there weren't enough people coming that wasn't covering the cost of hiring the place out.
Over the subs, yeah.
But yeah, so that was sad, because there is some other ones local to me, but I haven't tried any of them out yet.
See, all those Harry Potters and young Dims that you saw, like, they would always be the minority in any neighbourhood or such, but you'd always know that they were going to the GW store. And the thing is with the games day, is you'd get a coach load of those from every town across the country, all descend on Burnham NEC all at once. And you literally, I had to take myself up into the
What is a gathering of nerds? Is it a swarm, a herd, a gaggle? It's a murder of nerds.
It's certainly like a herd. It's weird. It's a bit like Black Friday though, because once they open the door, they rush in. This is the times when you could only get some of the Forge World stuff there. You had to go to Games Day and get it before anyone.
You haven't seen Excited until you've seen a gang of nerds waiting for that new GW release.
It's the herd.
It's what?
It's a herd.
A nerd herd.
So I met some of our herd from the WAR forum when I went to one of the Games Days. Actually, that was nice, because at least I had someone to wade through the crowds with.
There's a picture of that. I'm sure someone will pop that up.
Dim found it. Yeah, it's gone.
Dim found it.
Yes, we'll have
website. He's still got his website still up. It's great.
Hopefully, if the editing's gone well on this one, you'll be seeing that image right now, viewers.
Well, if you're seeing it right now, I must explain. I am saying, yummy sandwich. That's what I wasn't so fussed about the games. I was, my girlfriend made me a sandwich. And boom, that's a nice
What was
sandwich.
in the sandwich?
I think that was chicken, red
Stay
onion.
on target.
Stay on target.
Yeah, on target.
I don't know why I wanted to know that. I just really wanted to know what it was.
Well, if you see the picture, you can understand why you'd
I thought it was going to be lemon curd or something. I don't know.
I'm infused with it. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Speaking about staying
Everyone
on
else is
target,
Games Day.
Go on,
I'll
Scott,
talk
keep us
about a
on.
bad experience I had,
Go on.
which was in the same store. It was a bit of a strange time for me. One of my childhood friends had passed away, and I was staying in a youth hostel in the city centre, and I was going in to help clear his stuff out. So that's what I was doing, and I had some time. I'd gotten in. I think I'd worked until 3 or 4 in the morning the night before. I used to work in hotels at the time, so I stayed up. And I had some time to kill, so I went into the GW. I think that's what happened. Yeah, I had time to kill anyway. and I went into the GW, and I went in there, and it was weird. I got the pitch sale, the usual sort of, what are you into? I'm into orcs. Oh, this unit, that unit. It's like, mate, nah, it's all right. I have like literally 3 or 4 of everything you make. Tried to pitch me a sale on something else that had nothing to do with what I was interested in. I'm like, no, thanks. That's cool though. What did I want to do? I wanted to go in and I wanted to buy the Grey Knight Codex because I wanted to know about Drago or something like that. I knew this was back when you'd get like the fluff about the units and the stuff in the Codex. So I wanted to know about that. So I was thinking, well, I'll go in and I'll buy the Grey Knight Codex.
That
so whatever,
curiosity was well rewarded.
Whatever. So I went in and I was like, oh yeah, I'll buy that. And I remember I had like the 40 quid in my pocket. I had my hands in my pocket and I had like the 40 quid in my pocket. I was like, oh yeah, all right, grand. So I go over and I pick up the Codex and I'm having a peruse through it. And I'm like, oh yeah, grand, cool. And then he's like, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store. You're not buying anything.
Oh no, he didn't.
But this is the thing, like, this is the worst experience I've ever had with a GW staffer. And this is the problem I find, is it only takes one fucking arsehole to ruin it for you. And it's like, you know what I mean? I've had years upon years of great experiences.
Not only is that rude, but that's making you feel like, or making you out to be some kind of criminal, or
something like that. But you can't do that. I'm a security guard now, so I work security. That's actually illegal.
He thought you were going to sit there, read the thing cover to cover, put it back on the shelf. Well,
you can't do that. But I didn't know at the time, and the mentality I was in at the time, I was like, whatever. I just left, and I literally didn't go into that Games Workshop store for 4 or 5 years after that, or something like that.
I don't blame
you.
Know what I mean, I haven't had a moment like that since I used to read the Beano comics at Sainsbury's or something, and the lady would tell me to clear off because I'd been there for about an hour while my mum's shopping.
Yeah.
But that's
there you go. That's my bad experience.
My bad experience wasn't actually me. It was just someone else. A thing that I observed as a third party, but it annoyed me. In the store I was talking about earlier, where I went to the tournament, but just there shopping, and there was a guy. He looked a little bit like you, Dread, actually, but without the dreads. He had the long hair, but not the dreads. But he had the same. I don't know. He looked similar.
Good looking fella.
Yeah, handsome devil. But he was. And he had spoken to me when I come in, and he'd been done like this guy's the usual stick, find out what I'm in there for and everything. And he was pleasant enough. And I'm just wandering around looking, and then there's another guy in there. I can hear his voice quite loud, and he's clearly not firing on all cylinders. But he's chatting he's chatting to the no. This wasn't that guy. This is a customer I'm talking about now. So he's quite loud, and he's in there, and I can hear him chatting. And so I'm looking at stuff, and I'm not really listening, but I can hear him going. He's clearly a regular in there. They clearly know him, but he's going, yeah, right. The thing is, I just don't like orcs, right? I just can't. And he's talking like this, and he's really loud. But he's, like I said, he's just clearly perhaps not all there, but anyway, he's chatting away to him.
He didn't realise the irony that he was actually behaving like an orc.
Yeah.
I don't like orcs.
Yeah, well, he wasn't coming across obnoxious or whatever. He was just, I'm trying to think of the correct way to word this on YouTube. Like, he didn't seem like he perhaps was as mentally as old as he was. And he was enthusiastic about it, and he was friendly, but he was just very loud, and he was talking. But he was chatting to him, and the guy he's chatting to is all right, but the guy who had chatted to me, I just noticed him over there, and he's sort of sniggering amongst his mate and everything. And then the guy walks out, and the guy's like, he runs back to the store, like laughing, going, like he's just ripping the piss out of this guy, basically, after he's left the store. And clearly he's a customer they're having a lot, and he probably bends their ear for hours on end. But it was like, I'm standing thinking, there's a few customers in the store, and I'm like, do you think this is a professional way to act? Like, just
I've witnessed that exact same thing
in front of everyone else here, and I'm like, and it just the way they were mocking him and that, it just sat wrong with me, and I didn't like it. And the guy came across as a really jumped up prick, and I'm like, listen, mate, I just wanted to say, listen, like, you're a nerd working. You're in no position to throw mud. Like us as nerds,
Yeah.
we're in no position to mock others. You know, we are essentially the mocked. But
Yeah, our store used
it's-
to be outside of a bus stop. We had just outside our store, so we used to get mocked quite a bit. Anyone sort of waiting for the bus, they had 10 minutes to just leer through the window, go, look at them lot.
Cars drivers, nerds.
Yeah.
I'm getting that scene with Homer Simpson when he goes to college and he leans out and he's like, nerds. Like, excuse me. Hey guys, get a load
I
of
was going to say,
that
my GW is much the same. It's on the easily the most awful street in the entire
Yeah.
city. And yeah, lots of chavs going past, shouting in nerd and stuff like that. And it's just like, all of the weirdest. I know this isn't a specific GW example, but I was once in a pub that had kind of a reputation. It was kind of like it was more kind of a reserved one, and like it's one. You know those pubs that have guest ales. It was
Oh,
one
yeah.
of those
I know
pubs.
many of the ones.
You know, quite a little
Certain
trying to be a little
chairs and
trying to be a little
spots are always
sophisticated.
reserved for locals.
Yeah, very
Doesn't
very
go down well if you sit in those chairs.
yeah, one of the exactly one of those.
If it's next to a log
And-
fire, don't sit in it. You won't be.
I was there with
Yeah.
a mate, and
Yeah,
at,
you know.
at the time I used to smoke, so I was outside having a tab, and I was out smoking, and these three chavs walked past with proper chips on their shoulder, and just yelled in, you know, intellectuals, and he honestly meant it as an insult, and I had to restrain every impulse in my mind that was just going, just trying to demonstrate to him that wasn't an insult by yelling, "Oh, you big cock!" You know, it's like, you know, it's
Just tip your hat and give a bow.
Good day to you, good sir.
that's not an insult. Telling someone they're smarter than you is not an insult. And the fact that you think it's an insult while yelling it demonstrates they're right.
I don't know. These people do compete on how thick they can be. Like it's like a competition.
Stay on target. Stay on target.
Stay on target.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, how about good memories of like when we first ever went to a store? Because I remember when I first went to a Games Workshop store, before I ever got to know what it was like inside, was all the lights on the outside, the two display cabinets that were either side of the door. You had glass cabinets with miniatures, doing a little whirl of wits around in the cabinet, you know,
Yeah.
from
Dreads
all
on the
angles.
glass like a suction cup toy.
I was, mate. I was all over it. And
See the kids, and they're just like nose up against the window.
Steaming up
Yeah.
the glass.
yeah. These are way better than them little plastic soldiers I've got at home for 99p a bag.
Get the Windolene again. That prick's back again.
My boss, one of the kids is licking the window again.
Same one as usual. But I suppose that was a nice memory back then, was just seeing how enticing it all looked. But then I suppose the bittersweet part of that for me was that I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, walking
You know,
away
so-
with empty handed.
Yeah. I had a friend at the time as well who was spoilt rotten, with like one of those dads that had a handful of cash to give him because he was never around. And yeah, my mate used to go in and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to get this," and he'd only have to start putting things back when he realised he'd come to his grand total of 130 quid or whatever he had in his pocket. You know, whereas I had like a £5 or a tenner.
Yeah,
And
now
I
it's to
was
get
like
you your lunch and your bus fare home.
Exactly, yeah. So like, you know, I can definitely skip paying a bus, and I know all that.
Yeah.
So I could definitely get these dwarfs in this one box, this one paint and this one brush, and you know, I'm away. So yeah, I'd walk
Yeah, it
away
was,
with like 3 miniatures, 5 miniatures, and a brush and a paint, and really take my time over it. And yeah, it used to be a bit bitter that, you know, you'd introduce a friend to it that wasn't all that interested, but they'd be able to afford it way better than you could. So you'd just like, oh yeah.
There's a
Do you like my hobby?
certain,
Do you
there's
like
a
my hobby then, do you?
certain magic though, isn't there, to that time? Because I remember, like, let's say in younger days, and not being able to afford a lot of this stuff. And there was reading the White Dwarf like cover to cover several times over, and looking through your back issues, and like just dreaming of the army you could build. And used to fill out those
Catalogue.
ordering sections at the back. I would buy this and I'd buy that. And you have a plan, right? If I save all my pocket money and I do these extra jobs and I do in like 6 months, I could afford this. but yeah, going into the store and leaving empty-handed, but just drawing like the display cabinets. I think that's the thing that jumps out at me is the display cabinets. And there was a certain, and it can't be replicated because it's like it's a feeling you don't enjoy at the time, perhaps. But looking back on it, it's kind of a magical time of that kind of, almost like that waiting for Christmas. It's that build up and the anticipation. And when you get that one little box of something, you treasure it so dearly. And
that's how I got into converting. It's because quite purely, so you've got that one thing, you might as well make the most of it.
Yeah, but I mean, like now we just buy whatever we want when we want. For the most part, that we've all got our certain financial ceiling and stuff, but we've got a bit of disposable income now, and we buy these bits, and nothing's really out of range unless it's stupidly priced, Forge World stuff and that. But you kind of don't appreciate it so much now, and I just remember that sort of magical feeling being in the stores, just drooling over the miniatures in there and dreaming of what could be, and like,
Well,
in the catalogue for like £5 or £6 and looking through all the miniatures you wanted. Or I remember specifically you used to get, maybe there might be a free pamphlet or something like that, and you'd be able to look at the miniatures they had, and you'd thumb through the thing until it literally the pages fell apart.
Yeah, totally.
I remember those.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about like first experiences of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I suppose. Had you done Dread? Were you done? Or did you?
Yeah.
He's never done. You have to force your way in and start talking. That's the only way.
Hey, you decided that both of us gobshite should be on at the same time. It's your fault.
What are we on to now? The weird and wonderful things that have happened in stores for us?
Could do.
Yeah,
I mean, I was good. Yeah.
If Dim's got some memories of his early memories of his first time walking into the store.
Well, it kind of ties into one of my early experiences, and it probably says an awful lot more about me in hindsight than it does about the staffers, particularly. But like when I first started going in, it was much more of a big deal. Like when I started, the GW was a real big deal because when I started the hobby, there wasn't a GW in my city yet. There was a market store, but I've talked about that before in a previous stream, so I won't in a previous video, so I won't go into that now again. But there was a GW in the Metro Centre, which it's still one of Europe's biggest shopping malls.
Stay on target.
I went into the GW. It was back when the decor was cream and red. I'm so old. And I went in, and it was they were trying to flog like an expansion set for Second Ed, and it was a particular mission pack, and it was back when they did the
one that came with like hundreds of cards and stuff. It was like
it wasn't Dark Millennium. No, it was a campaign pack specifically. And it featured the Dark Angels, and I think it was called Storm of Vengeance or something. I think
something Vengeance, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It had vengeance in the name.
That narrows it down.
But, it had like
Don't fuck yourself, right?
It had some of that.
Dark Vengeance. Was it Dark Vengeance? I think it was.
No,
Vengeance of the Blood Angels.
It might have been. It might have been. I don't recall. I think it was Storm of Vengeance, to be honest. But it had like a few terrain pieces that were like card. You made them from card back in the day, and you might have like a couple of plastic bulkheads to stick to it, the same bulkheads they used in Necromunda, and you built this kind of card terrain, and there was one bit, there was a bit of cover for you, and also it like had to do with objectives. And they did a fantasy one around about the same time that had like a removable Mork or perhaps Gork statue.
Oh, I know the one. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but it was a similar campaign pack to that. And they had the Dark Angels, and they were painted really, really nicely. And they had some of the Necrons had just come out, so they had like 2 free blisters that you could buy.
Stay on target. Oh, hang on, Necrons. Carry on.
You could buy an Immortal.
Yeah.
Actually, no. This predates it. Actually,
so they're chunky. Those old.
No. It's the original release. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the Lord didn't exist, and the Immortal didn't even exist yet. All you could get was Warriors and Scarabs. That was it.
Proper.
So there was some Scarabs, and Scarabs were freaking huge.
Yeah.
and like the Warriors. I really liked the old Warriors.
Oh, they were
I
awesome.
I can see why they changed them because they're a little too Terminator-y, but I much preferred them.
They're very dated, but they're really cool.
They're
really
so
cool.
gorgeous. I love their guns. I much preferred their guns that had kind of like the triangular, pointy, weird energy gun. It looked like a gun from the future, which the gun with a stupid piece of plastic rod in.
I'm trying to stay on target, but he's talking about old school Necron, so he's got me all
The
excited.
rods all had bubbles in them, though. Find one without a bubble, and you're on
The whole time I'm saying I know I should be telling him to stay on target, but he's old school Necrons.
But, yeah,
I told you, man.
and
You scratch that yellow paint on the surface, and you're a chrome dome underneath. Like.
yeah.
What yellow paint? What yellow paint you on about there? Black with a hint of yellow, isn't it?
It's a good job I don't collect bloody Slanesh or something. He would have sent me a ball gag and nipple tassels or something. You know?
But that was
apparently if you collect something, you got to dress like it as well.
But it was weird because when I I'm trying to focus, you fucks. So when I was in there, that was quite a positive experience. I went back not too long after the 3rd edition came out. I'd been playing for a little while, and I knew the rules pretty well. And I was there with a friend, and the friend spent
I can
all
see
the
the
time
problem already.
trying to like take the piss out with me. But no. So I was there, and I was a little bit longer in the tooth than your average kid. I knew enough stuff. I'd played and understood to a reasonable extent 2nd Ed. So 3rd Ed comes along, it's far simpler. And every freaking staffer around about the time of 3rd Ed thought every kid getting into the hobby was an idiot who needed 3rd Ed to play wargaming. And I maintain, no, I could play 2nd Ed. Fuck you. And I was watching this demo game with some kids that were playing, and the staffer decided that there was a Dark Eldar, because the starter set was some Dark Eldar and some Space Marines.
And a land speeder.
The land speeder wasn't there. So the Space Marines had a tactical squad, and the Dark Eldar had 20 Dark Eldar warriors. And the guy, for the purposes of the scenario, basically had all of the models hit and wound on the same amount. But I was just like, one person's outnumbering the other. But he decided that the Dark Eldar should have a 3+ save. And I was trying to correct him, and he was getting increasingly annoyed with me. Because I was right. I was right, staffer from the past. I was correct.
How dare you?
And you were teaching this kid something that wasn't even the real rules. But it's simpler for a child to understand. It's just like,
What was it? It goes by. It's supposed to be fun, fast, and furious, or some, their intro games.
Fast, fun, and expensive.
yeah, but you might figure out that if one person has more models than the other, if they both have the same rules, someone is more likely to lose than the other, and that's a bad intro game.
Yeah.
The reason the rules are written in a particular way
Let's play chess, only I
is
get
to try
5
and
queens
get
you
as
get
close
one.
to balance as possible. I believed that until about 5th Ed, but there's still a reason why lower quality, like Horde armies, always have lower quality troops than elite armies, and when you bridge the gap between the two, you might as well not be playing with different matches at that point. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I just found it kind of annoying, and he was really rude to me back, and I just kind of I just remembered it quite negatively.
Well, the good news is, Tim, we have that GW staffer in the studio with us today. Come on in, buddy.
That little prick, I tell you.
Do you even remember this kid? I've no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah. See,
Body
for
holds
me,
on
it was
to
a
things,
really important.
I knew the story was going.
Hang on.
Your first. Go on.
I'm going to crowbar this quote in. See, for me, it was one of the more important days of my early hobbying life, and for him, it was Tuesday. It's
Yay! In the
best
comment
quote
section, what
from the
movie
best
that's
film,
from, please. But yeah, I knew the story was not going to be a positive one when you said I went into the store and I knew my law. Oh God! Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
I've
This
got
is
lots
going
of.
south.
I could fill this entire video with just me talking about times I went into a staffer and they asked me a question or made a statement and I responded, and it became a training incident. So mercifully, I've decided not to pick any of them because that's a bit. Maybe one. We might get to one towards the end, but I'm going to see what everybody else wants to say first. So I'm done.
Is we're talking
God
about painting
bless you, sir.
competitions
God
and winning
bless you.
stuff. I had I've entered a painting competition I think once or twice in the Dublin store back when I used to go a lot in my late teens, but I never really won anything. The only time I won something was when there was like I think it was like the release of a new Warhammer Fantasy or something like that. I can't remember the exact thing, but there was a few things they were running. It was like bring in the oldest edition of Warhammer Fantasy, and a friend at the time gave me a lend of the second edition Warhammer Fantasy to bring in. He's like, there you go, bring that in with you, see if you get something. And it was the oldest game brought into the store. And then what else did I win? There was like a fancy dress. So I used to have actual chainmail and
Wow.
stuff like that.
Class.
So I went to the store like that, and it's the only time I've actually won anything in a Games Workshop.
Please tell me you went on the bus or something.
I did go on the bus, but I went into it wasn't a Costa, but it was some independent coffee store next door. Bought a coffee, used the toilet there because they didn't have changing rooms in the Games Workshop, and I wasn't getting changed in front of everyone. And
A
then
young boy walked in, and then a wizard came walking out. Wasn't it?
young fella walks in with this massive heavy bag and then walks out, and it's just like in chainmail.
A young Skada walks into the gentleman's toilets, and out comes Xena, warrior princess. I'm definitely winning this year.
Yeah, that's probably the weirdest story I have of a Games Workshop store was winning prizes for a fancy dress. There we go. See, it was a weird story. It was.
They did used to. I don't know about your store, but they used to in my store. They used to. If you painted a miniature well, it wasn't a part of competition. But if you did a really good job of a miniature, especially if you painted it there in store with them, they'd put it in the display cabinet. They had like a shelf in the display cabinet for participants.
Yeah, pre-internet, that was a great way to show off your miniatures, wasn't it? To have pride of place there.
Yeah, it really was. And they put a little plaque in front of it with your name on it as well, and what age you were or something. Well, I don't know if they put your age. Not sure if they put your age or not. I can't remember. I think maybe they didn't, because there was a few people that painted like children and weren't. So. I'll tell you one thing I did. One memory I used to have particularly as well was tripping over people's bags. You go into a Games Workshop store, if it was busy,
that still happens now.
Backpacks everywhere, all over the floor. You'd be tripping over things just to look at the shelves.
Well, say it still happens now. I don't know if it happens in GW stores so much. I don't see them so busy anymore.
Was anal about things being left on the floor. Like, they had to be under tables. Had to be.
I think our store didn't have an under table space because it was taken up by like built under drawers and cupboards,
Yeah.
So they all ended up around the doorway, right? Just as people come in. So like, you've got a new customer because they've just like face planted the gaming table as they came in.
Some of the GW stores had they went through a funny phase for it. Like, some of them used to have the like what they called the battle bunkers or something. They'd have like a back room area or an upstairs or a downstairs area or whatever. They'd have an area for club gaming sort of stuff. And then they went through a funny phase where they started stopping all them, and they were saying, no, our gaming tables are just to introduce new people to the hobby and stuff. And I remember that being a lot of talk at the time and stuff. I never
around the time that Lord of the Rings come out. That was Lord of the Rings would always be set up on a table and no one ever playing it. You're like, what's this doing here? Like,
the words rent and discount comes to mind for some completely not cynical reason at all. As if you eliminate one room that you're not using for retail purposes, all of a sudden, money saving. It's all money saving.
No, I think
I remember people nearly accidentally taking the wrong case home, or you'd be playing a game and someone would go, you know what I mean? Because there's that many like kids, and you all had the same fucking GW case, that black one. The old one, the
eggshell phone.
That's my case. You know what I mean? No, it isn't. Yeah, it is. Open it. Look. It's like vampire counts. Oh, all right. Sorry, mate. You know what I mean?
I had that.
Chuck it back at them without even doing it up.
Yeah.
No, my one only had 2 Metallica stickers on it. Yours is the Megadeth one.
Yeah, you needed to do something like that because I can remember that happening. It would have, it being funny, people picking up the wrong cases, or you know what I mean. You go to open your case and play a game and be like, "This isn't mine." High elves.
I never
Smell the potpourri coming out as you open it. So fucking close that again, lads. Jesus.
We've got a non GW store like near us that sells all kinds of stuff, and it's both a gaming club and a store. But I've never enjoyed playing a game in the middle of a store. I prefer that if it's in a back room or in a club or something where you can have that peace and quiet around you, and you can have a conversation. I'm in a noisy, hustling, bustling atmosphere. It's not so much for me.
No, because you become part of the attraction, don't you? You're part of the sales almost, because you're drawing people in and people want to come and look at what you're doing. And yeah, that's why they want you doing it. Yeah.
I didn't mind it, but that's because I was the gobshite talking.
Kids with Cheetos covered fingers picking up your minis and looking at them like, get off.
Unsupervised game store kid. I remember that when that was a meme. Oh, God, we're so old. I don't know whether or not I've told the story before, but I do have one about when I was at Warhammer World. And
we haven't really touched on that much.
I used to go quite often with Scar to War meets. We're always good for a laugh. And I have to say, like, I'm going to have a little rant. This is an old channel, right? And like, this is a kind of thing that I've seen somewhat disturbingly, and I'm hoping we're going to see a reversal of this kind of trend. But like, Orc players often get shit for the fact that they sometimes use non-GW parts, and because they convert everything all the time. And I've not encountered it a lot. Almost all the places I go, unanimously met with positivity. Whenever we're at Warhammer World, we always had admirers coming. Like, particularly when we had the mega battles on the Saturday, we would always have kids coming over, adults coming over, admiring the stuff, asking questions. Like, you put a bunch of Orc players on the table, and you've got some of the best ambassadors for this hobby has. Because a lot of Orc players will convert, and we have a fun faction, so we tend to play. It injects fun, like one of my old forum buddies, Grish Grub, is probably one of the people who taught me to be a much better gamer than I was, just by the fact that he just made it enjoyable, and part of that was his identity as an Orc player. And like, one of the things I admired about it was that he had like stuff that he'd made from plastic card, and he had stuff that he'd made his own, and like, his army looked unique. And when you've got something that looks that little bit different, it gets everybody's attention, because almost everyone in that hobby store is going to notice, and they're going to see the potential of the hobby. And the hobby has to be this thing. It has to be this thing that is more than merely the product. It has to be. And the second you try and
different
boil
strokes
it
for
down,
different folks too. And they invented the Orcs. They gave us that encouragement to behave that way with that particular faction.
Somewhat by necessity.
It's a bit odd to then sort of like thrash out of us in the next stroke and say, "Well, no, don't do that." Don't.
Yeah, I encountered that. I encountered that once in a Warhammer World, and like, the irony is we were talking earlier about like one bad experience wrecking everything, but I've had a couple of bad experiences with Warhammer World that's just made me kind of determined to never go back. And in spite of all the coterie of times, I cannot emphasize enough, almost all the staff I met at Warhammer World were great. They were really, really nice. They were really, really helpful. They were really, really chatty. They deal with an awful lot of people, and they still manage to be really nice to you and helpful. And a lot of them would come over and admire your stuff, and they'd ask you questions just as hobbyists,
Yeah.
Like, and that made an awful lot more of a difference. Like, you want, like, there's an old saying that a lot of the old schoolers staffers know, support the hobby and you support the company. It's like, I've not got it exactly right, but that's the general gist of it. Is if you support the hobby, the money will come, because that's where it is. and we're the lifeblood of this thing. You know, we keep it going. And this one particular time, I had this staff and manager come over, and he just made a point of coming over with his arms folded, and he looked at the table and he was shaking his head. And honestly, right, we'd been there the entire weekend. We'd been coming to the Warhammer world since, oh crikey, when did it start? It was like I'm sure it was the mid-90s we'd been doing Warmate, and maybe it was the noughties, actually, maybe it was the early noughties. But from like early days of Forfed through to like not too long in the past, we did a Warmate, at least one every year, and towards the peak 2 a year, and we had nothing but admirers. And I'd be looking, and we'd be in there, and we would draw a bigger crowd every freaking time than anybody else who was there. And like the only times we didn't draw the biggest crowd was the times when they had the armies on parade, and there was like some amazing display boards, because it's Warhammer World. So some of the people bring some of the best stuff that you'll see for armies on parade, and that's the only time we're ever upstaged. And you'd have this staffer come over and audibly shake his head as if to say, you know, this is not on. And I knew what the subtext of it was. He didn't say it out loud, but he obviously wasn't happy that there wasn't 100% Games Workshop there. And now there's a rule. There is a rule at Warhammer World.
Because he went back to the back office and said, here, look, I ain't happy with this. We've got to come up with something.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Where, you know, like, he was one of the things he was shaking his head at was Bad Fang's sort of milliput Gargant. But where is our Gargant, Forge World? Where is our Orc Gargant? We don't have one. So now we've got idiots on Reddit calling Gargants made by other people stompers, because that's the biggest kit you can be bothered to make for Orcs. Well, I say that. There's probably someone that's looted Warlord.
Probably.
Because here's the thing, we can take your stuff and make it look better.
If Forge World made a Gargant, there'd be wallets crying all over the world.
Yeah, it would be great.
I don't know. All depends on how the rules are as to whether people buy
No, it doesn't have Space Marines. They're not allowed to do it anymore. It's not Space Marines, and it's not Specialist Games. They don't have time. And like, it would be great. It would be great if we had a Gargant, but that's not really my point. But like, the guy was just like, he said something that I've remembered ever since. It's like, oh, all you Orc players, you know, we make all these new kits for you. It was around about the time the buggies had just come out. So
it was
like,
we were there when the buggies
we were
released.
there when they were released. Yeah. It's like, all you Orc players, you like, because I think it started a conversation with me. It's just like the about the buggies, and it was just like, you know, I saw you over there with your table. It's like, oh yeah, this is later on after he didn't talk to me while he was shaking his head because he wandered off. But I was up in the cabinet having a look at the buggies. He came over, he fucking made a beeline for me, actually. I could see in the glass that he was coming straight for us. And he's like, oh, you know, and I could see he wanted to stick the knife in. You could tell he's brimming on it all day. And he said, oh, you know, all you Orc players, you know, we give you all these pretty kits, and all you do is convert them. And I just sort of smarmily looked over at him and said, yeah, it's almost like it's a hobby, isn't it, buddy? And he didn't really say anything. He just sort of wandered off. And I was just like, here's the thing, right? It's just like, the hobby is a big thing, and like the great thing about it is the freedom. That's we all want to be creative artists, and this is wish fulfillment, because none of us really have the time to be like Da Vinci and, you know, properly learn to become artists in our own right and make our own thing and get that level of creativity and ability. And a company like Games Workshop can come along and go, we'll meet you halfway, we'll give you a leg up, right? And then you've got, right, okay, so I borrow your creativity to put my creativity into it. And that has to be a compromise. It doesn't work any other way. If you go, no, you buy my creativity and you do it my way, that
yeah,
isn't
takes half the
satisfying.
fun out of it for a lot of
It
people.
takes
Yeah.
a lot of
This
the
is
fun
what we
out of a lot of people.
that's
This
a
is
lot
what
of
we're all
the thing
crying
that's
about a
gonna-
lot now.
those sites, like you're saying, drawing big crowds and stuff, because that's the stuff that's gonna attract and interest a veteran gamer. Because if you walk into a GW store now, do you really peruse the shelves much? Because you know it all. You see it all the time. You know the whole range of all the factions and all the stuff. You're seeing the release sometimes. So you don't go in a GW store and sort of peruse the shelves and go, "Oh, I've never seen this before." Some people do, but veterans. in the hobby
I would
don't.
say I
We
would
know
I was
stuff.
going to agree with you there, but then thinking about it, there's so many releases coming out now that I think if I did walk into a GW store, which I
Even
haven't done for a
now,
long
I'm
time,
aware of
I'd
them
see
'cause I've
stuff that I'll be like, "Oh, what the hell is that?"
I've
even?"
seen them all. I've seen them. And I think most people have. They've seen them because they're revealed. And that's
Yeah,
not,
but
that's just the nature of the
there's
thing.
the other thing though, is that like you generally tend not to find the quirky stuff because a GW store is made up of a specific number.
Yeah.
They call it like the top 400 or something like that,
Mhm.
but it's like it's basically their store has always got the best selling stuff in it. So you're more likely to see the things that you know.
I walk
because they're the
into
things that sell.
I walk into my local non-GW store and I leave with a GW product, but I've enjoyed looking at all the other products because I'm saying, "Oh, that's cool. Never seen that before." I've seen all
Yeah.
these other games and these other ranges and stuff. It's all mixed in. But it like place like a Warhammer World and stuff. Like part of the reason that people go there is for the spectacle of seeing these amazing dioramas and stuff and things. But on the gaming tables as well, they want to see these awesome armies going at war. And if you are a veteran of the hobby of many years and you've been in it, you've seen all the the land raiders and battle wagons and everything that you could shake. You know them all. You can admire a nice paint job. If you walk over to a table and you're like, "What's that? Oh, that's cool. That's like his own version of a land raider or something, or he's converted, or he's done something different with that. I've never seen it." That's going to attract people and that's going to keep the interest going. And yeah, it's a shame that they take that sort of stance these days.
They're
and
actively
it's forced
legislating
in the
against breaking the
stores and
rules.
things. Yeah, that is a shame that you don't get to see things like that in their stores at least and their tournaments. But
I think we always walk when we go to Warhammer World. We always walk around the tables and see what's what, and you'll see everything. You'll see like people using rogue trader era Imperial robots, and you'll be like, "What the Jesus is that?" You'll see screamer killers. Sometimes we've been there. There's been tournaments going on. I remember specifically there was a guy playing orcs in a tournament, and nearly all of us were chatting to him about tactics or his unit because he did like conversions for Chinork warcopters and stuff like that. So, you see some really cool stuff like people using Grot armies and for tournaments, and it's a good experience. So I'll say that much. Like if you haven't been to Warhammer World, go.
yeah,
Definitely
I need to go.
You should go at least once.
It's one of them things
Try play a
you've
game
got
there
to
as
cross
well.
it off your bucket list, haven't you? It's got to be
Try play a game there because it's great.
Gotta make the pilgrimage.
I probably would. I
Definitely.
probably would have disagreed with you if they'd stuck with that. We're getting rid of table booking. That was a kick in the face. That when they did that, they decided they were going to get rid of table booking.
One thing I would like to say before we close up and before we move on is that element seems to be missing these days a lot. And a lot of people say that Games Workshop no longer has that feel that it used to have. It doesn't have that community. A lot of them are shut down now as well, so we don't have so many of them around. But I think what we've actually achieved between us and the rest of the community is to actually make our own version of that online. What we have on YouTube and on Facebook and on Discord and that, the community that we've got around us is actually better off than that anyway. So we might have been missing it, but we've actually created it. So it's not really missing from the hobby. So if you do want to get into the hobby,
there's Mr. Segway again.
You've made me remember something.
What's that?
We're talking about gaming stores and gaming clubs, and I never thought of actually something that a gaming club doesn't actually have to exist within a building because me and my group of friends from back in the day when there was about 5 or 6 of us that all used to play on the regular, just usually play at usually be my house, but sometimes at other people's houses and that. We were a gaming club. And I've got great memories of that. And we used to, amongst our small little group, organise little tournaments where we would have like small points games and all play each other once during the day, or we'd all join up and do a big apocalypse game, or we ran campaigns. We had a big map board set up on a cork board, and we put pins in, and we taken out over various areas of the map. And
well, I don't think we're very far off having a 40k Orc community sort of gathering before long, in the next year or so, I'd say.
It's going to happen at some point. It'll certainly
Again,
happen between the four of us at some point.
Yeah, but I'm sure a lot of the other rest of the community want to get involved as well, don't they? So I'm sure that'll happen too. We can have like an event where we can, announce it and get everyone together.
If they behave themselves, maybe.
Yeah, things like that are bad. The internet's done. The internet brings with it a lot of evils and a lot of bads, but the internet does do a great thing in making you we've got new ways to meet and stuff. Like those stores were like one of our avenues of meeting people, weren't they? The gaming club was the place where you meet like-minded. Oh, you're a nerd too. Wicked. Shit. Although I always used to find one at every workplace. Every workplace, there's always one. He's like, did you do Warhammer?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you see, you've got some Chaos Black on your fingernail there.
Yeah, don't tell the other lads, but I play Warhammer.
Yeah.
I've literally had comments like that off of like girls in the workplace or something like that. I'll be talking to someone about gaming. They're like, "You're into that? You don't look like that sort."
Yeah, I had that as well. I wouldn't have thought you had been into that.
I would have thought you'd be into that, yeah.
I had that conversation once. Lies.
No, you didn't.
That's why he said lies. He's like, I wish I could relate.
I collect it. We know.
Yeah, might as well be wearing a t-shirt.
Oh shit, I am.
You turned up on your first day wearing a t-shirt saying Frodo lives. We know. But yeah, so
Look, right, none of us care who this Matt Ward guy is. Just get over it.
We need to make this show like Sky. You probably need to. I don't know if you can do this in editing. We need to make this show. There's a show in the UK called QI, and every time someone does a certain trigger word on the answers, you get the buzzer going off.
Klaxon.
We need some certain words like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Just Matt Ward's face flashing on screen. Right, lads, I think we need to wrap it up since, come on, Dred, you're the
Who's
host.
hosting this shit?
All
Fucking hell.
right then, lads, we'll call it a day. And
Who's responsible for this cowboy operation?
Be here to bleeding Christmas at this rate, you know what I mean?
Well, we have to let them speak sometimes. So anyway, in the next episode, I suppose, what we're going to be talking about, we might as well talk about the best of the rest. All our favourite enemies and all the miniatures that we thought about collecting before we settled on orcs, or maybe
that's
the
right,
other ones that we've considered in between.
Next month to this orc-based channel with this orc-based show, we're going to talk about everything else apart from orcs.
But also orcs.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your favourite enemy is your favourite enemy.
Your favourite enemy is your favourite faction?
True that. I mean, I'm looking forward to playing you guys, and you're all playing orcs, of course. So yeah, it's going to be some orc on orc
Orcs
action.
versus orcs is the best game. Like all the best 40k games I've played.
Save it for the next episode. Shh. Don't spill the beans. Don't spill the beans.
Don't listen to him. He hasn't even got an orc army.
Yeah.
There ain't any orcs in his army.
I've got one.
He's got the whip. Right, so I suppose that's what we'll be doing in the next episode.
I've got orcs on my models. They're dying, but they're there.
Just make sure you paint him in Blood Axe colours or Freebooter colours, yeah?
I was thinking yellow myself, but...
I hear it's quite in vogue right now.
Some people don't like it.
Yeah, it wouldn't insult anyone if you did. It's not like anyone here collects yellow orcs, is it? You know? Anyway,
I was going to paint one of their shirts yellow, but I decided against it.
Yeah, put a 6+ on it. Oh, I'm so tempted already, mate. I've got all sorts of ideas now. But we're going to wrap it up, all right? You know what to come and see in the next episode?
Yeah, me in a yellow t-shirt with a yellow hat, yellow fucking boots and yellow pants and a fucking yellow jacket. All right? I'll be dressed like a fucking canary next month, all right? Happy? You'll fuck off now.
For at least 5 episodes. I want to see it.
Until we find something else to rib you
Some
off.
yellow
And then
fucking body paint, you know.
So, if any of you wonderful viewers would like to check out Mr. Yellow himself, check out 6+ Stevo's channel. A link will be in the description, along with a link for Dim Reaper, the hobby git. Go over and check him out for some green stuff tutorials, and you can go and listen to his
some lore.
go and listen to his opinions.
It's not
about
there yet,
things.
but lore is coming. It's coming.
Yeah, Lore's
Eventually.
coming, for sure.
It's
And
coming.
you can go and join Mr. Skarner himself over on Plastic Crack Gaming for a good old live stream hangout. And there's a few golden gems to go and look at that have just been recently.
Oh,
So go and
thanks,
check
mate.
his
They're the
recent
ones
shows.
that I'm on. Cheers.
No,
we're good.
no,
We had a good
I
time
won't-
recording them. So good.
I weren't talking about the bald knobs, actually. Talking about other people we had on there. He had some very interesting characters just lately. I learned a lot, actually,
He has.
myself.
His show's taken off well because I think for about 10 weeks in a row he just alternated between me and Dim for ages.
I think I was on there once or twice, but, I caused a bit too much ruckus, don't I? So, don't get invited back all that often.
Not
Right.
sore about that at all, is he? Jesus.
Right, so join us.
you want
lot
some ointment
in
for that, Dread?
Fucking wrap it up, lads. Come on. Focus.
Right.
I've got a nice yellow cloth you can apply it with.
No. I want to make sure that when everybody's finished watching this video, it's time to watch the next one.
Yeah.
Right, that's it from me. Enough said. You guys can
6+
say goodbye.
Stevo, signing out.
Bye
Bye
from
from Dim.
Skarner. Don't forget
Fuck.
to drill your barrels.
And it's bye from Dim.
It doesn't mean it. He's gonna keep rolling now.
This is a story all about how.
Oh, Jesus.
Top show.
Resistance is futile. Or as the Americans say, resistance is futile.
Yeah.
Do you remember the little tiny one? Little tiny one.
yeah,
And you
that
opened it out.
folded out.
And it had
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely remember that one. Dred's got someone at the door, guys.
Oh, sorry, I'm so annoyed. Hang on, pause.
Don't worry, just tell him to clear off. We won't edit this out. We'll keep this in.
He's fucking.
He forgot to hang that no admittance except on party business sign on his front door.
I'm not at home.
Hanging on the bell there. Oh, well, do you know, it's great. Like I said, we can certainly fill this video because we have got a lot of outtakes we can throw on at the end.
I'm so sorry, guys. The landlord just decided he wanted to get a ladder and climb on the roof right at this moment in time.
Nice.
Who are you
Good
talking
time
to
for
in there?
Oh, sorry about that.
No
Pretending to be
worries.
popular. Yeah, right.
Hey, listen, if you could knock on the door in about an hour's time, yeah, just
Suss
Make
me
it out
out.
like I'm a big shot, like Steve-O.
Yeah.
I hate it when Data says that. It's futile, not futile.
Much bigger than Blue Water, you fuck. And
How is it?
yeah, it's massive, but it's just outside Newcastle. It's freaking huge.
Fucking ghost town is what it is.
Yeah, but well, we've
That's
only
why it's not known like Blue Water. Blue Water is like the unofficial biggest one because people know about it.
well, actually, Blue Water might actually be bigger than that. I don't know when Blue Water got built. Is it recent or has it been around a while?
It was around the 2000 mark. Around that
Maybe
sort
it's
of
bigger. Maybe it's bigger. I mean,
I wonder if the viewers care.
no,
No, because I thought
This is like a conversation with my nan.
I remember that shopping centre. That used to be the biggest one in Europe. It
You know-
did. Just think it is.
Primark, you know,
I'm
very
not
good
sure
one.
now. I think they built one down there in the 2000s.
You know Mrs. Smith down
What's
the
it,
road.
Buxton?
Well, you know
Do
how
you
she's
remember Mary
related
used
to
to
so and
shop
so
there? Yeah,
from
Jesus.
There's a
from-
lovely little shop.
from
Makes the
Gadam
most
Street.
lovely cup of tea and a croissant. We go down there, we pop into the Primark.
Remember we went there one
Sparks
time
around
and
the
I had
corner
the
in
coffee and it
Waitrose.
was €3.50 and it was disgraceful, the price, I'm telling you.
Hey, I'll tell you, fun fact for you, it's not called Primark here, it's called Pennies.
Fuck you.
Well, that's getting edited out.